Now, broadcasting from behind enemy lines, deep in the trenches of the Patriot resistance, leading the charge in the battle for liberty. This is the Jayson Veley Program.
Hello, folks. Jayson Veley here. You're listening to the Jayson Veley Program. Happy Thursday. The weekend is almost upon us. The email address, if you want to get in touch with me, the Jayson Veley Program at gmail.com, the Jayson Veley Program at gmail.com, or give us a call and leave a voicemail, 860-266-2852. So there's another officer-involved shooting that happened earlier this week that we haven't had a chance to address because we really spent most of Tuesday and Wednesday talking about the Chauvin verdict and the response that there's been so far to that case. But I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what happened in Columbus on Monday. Again, another officer-involved shooting. It involves 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant. Happened again in Columbus on Monday. And what happened, folks, and I watched the body cam footage that has been released by the police department there in Columbus. And what it shows, and I encourage all of you to watch it too if you haven't already, is it shows this 16-year-old just literally inches away from stabbing another child, teenager, with a kitchen knife. Seconds away. And the cop, after multiple times saying, something along the lines of put the knife down, step away, trying to de-escalate the situation. It didn't de-escalate. Ma'Khia Bryant went to stab this other teenager, and just before she was able to do so, the cop discharged his firearm and ended up killing her. That's the spark notes of this, ladies and gentlemen. But the key point is that Ma'Khia had a knife. And the reason why the Columbus Police Department released this body cam footage so early, much earlier than they usually do, is because they wanted to make it very clear to the public that what this cop did was really in defense of another innocent person. This innocent person, I don't know the victim's name, but she was about to get stabbed. The body cam footage clearly shows a knife in Ma'Khia's hands. And so the police officer did what he could only think to do at the time and used his firearm to put an end to the situation. He saved a life. He saved a life. I mean, and it could have been after stabbing this victim. I mean, there were other people on the scene too. There's no telling how many more people Ma'Khia would have gone after had this police officer not put an end to it. Now, don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely unfortunate. Young girl, 16-year-old, had her whole life ahead of her, and now she's dead. It is a tragedy. It's. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not sad. I'm not going to sit here and deny that. Of course, our prayers go out to the family and Ma'Khia's friends. It's horrible, but what happened. She had a knife. She was going to kill somebody else. She was just about to stab somebody else, and the cop took action. Now, right off the bat, folks, you can see how different this case is than the Derek Chauvin case, right? Derek Chauvin held his knee on the throat of George Floyd for 9 minutes as he was yelling, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." 9 long minutes, and ended up killing him. That, unexcusable, as I made very, very clear on yesterday's show. Completely unacceptable. In this case, again, very different. Very different. What happened in Columbus was unfortunate, but the cop did what he had to do. The cop did what he had to do. But of course, liberals are starting to frame it already as, an example of systemic racism, police brutality, and all the rest. Without looking at the facts, they really don't care that the cop saved a life and potentially multiple lives. They don't care. They want to talk about police brutality and systemic racism. We'll get more into the left in just a few minutes here. But I want to read this because I thought this was interesting too. While we're on the topic of getting out all the facts and all the information about what happened in Columbus on Monday, let me read this from Breitbart. According to a report, Ma'Khia Bryant's neighbor says that the officer had no option but to shoot. Had no option but to shoot. A neighbor of the Ohio teenager fatally shot by police reportedly said video from his security camera made him believe the officer had no other option but to shoot. So this neighbor looked at the body cam footage and came to the conclusion, yeah, he had no other option. And that's why I encourage you guys to watch the body cam footage as well. It's a little tough to find. I was able to find it after some scrolling on YouTube. But watch it. And if there's anyone listening to this right now on the left, any liberals listening to this, you watch it too. Maybe especially you. Because before you go out there crying systemic racism and police brutality, it's important to actually know what the hell happened. Otherwise, you sound like clowns. The neighbor named Donovan Brinson told that it according to the New York Post, said, quote, they were calling each other the B word, so I figured it was just a girl fight, referring to the conflict that police showed up and ended up putting an end to. He explained the yelling grew louder when he took his dog into his backyard, so he went back inside, the outlet continued, according to the New York Post. And when police arrived, he said he heard 4 shots as his wife, Rachel, dove to the floor. Brinson said he looked out the window of his laundry room and saw the mortally wounded Ma'Khia Bryant lying on the ground. He quickly thought of his surveillance camera affixed to the garage and watched the shocking footage, which captured the fight and the glint of a knife. It was violent and all just happened so fast, Brinson recalled, mentioning another girl in pink who was the second person involved in the incident with Bryant. Brinson later gave his video to authorities and said he believed if police had not acted, more people might have been killed. The Columbus Division of Police released an officer's body cam footage showing the shooting of the teen who appeared to be armed with a knife, Breitbart News reported on Tuesday. So, according to this witness, who witnessed the escalating conflict between Ma'Khia Bryant and this other girl, witnessed the knife, witnessed the police officer showing up and putting an end to it. According to this neighbor, it was 100% justified, and the police officer had no other option. And I'm telling you, if you watch the footage, you'll come to the same conclusion. You'll come to the same conclusion. So now that we've laid all that out as a foundation, let's get into how some on the left are responding to this. Shall we? It's really not very much different than how they've been responding to a number of these incidents. The whole systemic racism and police brutality mantra that they always resort to. The problem here, folks, the thing that I take issue with is that before information was released, before we even knew all the facts, people on the left were already attacking the cops, blaming the police, saying it's another example of racism, before they even knew what the hell happened. There were protesters in Columbus on Monday night, showing up to protest. I don't know if any rioting or anything like that took place, but activists showed up to protest police brutality in Columbus. There were hundreds of them. But it had nothing to do with police brutality. It had nothing to do with systemic racism. This was an act of defense. A police officer witnessed someone about to get stabbed and he stepped in. That's what happened. No police brutality, no racism. Why is it racist? Because it's a white cop and a black 16-year-old? That automatically makes it racist? You see, they don't look at the facts. They don't care about the facts. Anytime you have white cop plus black person that gets shot, that is racism to them. Doesn't matter. The facts, the evidence, the information does not matter to these people. It does not matter to them, ladies and gentlemen. Here's what Jen Psaki had to say. She had a prepared statement for questions concerning the Ma'Khia Bryant incident. She had a prepared statement. Listen to how she responded to a question about this.
Hi, Jen. Taylor Poplars with Spectrum News. Three quick questions. I'll make them quick. First, has the president been briefed on 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant being shot and killed by police in Columbus, Ohio yesterday? It happened moments before the Chauvin verdict came out.
Yes. I said yes, and let me just say, since you gave me the opportunity, the killing of 16...
All right, now this entire statement is prepared. Okay, it has been pre-written, so you can't tell me that at this point when she's reading this, she didn't know about the knife that Ma'Khia Bryant had. She didn't know that the cop was there to defend this innocent teenage girl from a knife attack. Jen Psaki knows this. The White House is aware of the facts of the case. Yet listen to what they say. Listen to how she phrases it.
16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant by the Columbus police is tragic. She was a child. We're thinking of her friends and family and the communities that are hurting and grieving her loss. We know that police violence disproportionately impacts Black and Latino people in communities, and that Black women and girls, like Black men and boys, experience higher rates of police violence. We also know that there are particular vulnerabilities that children in foster care like Ma'Khia face. And her death came, as you noted, just as America was hopeful of a step forward after the traumatic and exhausting trial of Derek Chauvin and the verdict that was reached. So our focus is on working to address systemic racism and implicit bias head-on, and of course to passing laws and legislation that will put much-needed reforms into place at police departments around the country.
Okay, great. Why? How is this racism? Can someone tell me that? How is this racism? Just because it's a white cop and a black person that got shot does not mean it's racism. Does not mean it's racism. I mean, folks, at this point, what's the standard? What's the standard? Are you on the left going to label every single incident like this, where it's a white cop and a black person who gets shot by the cop, as racist? Every single one, no matter the facts, no matter the information. Is this what's going to happen from now on? I mean, let's say a police officer shows up to a burglary. Someone's breaking into a house. And the person breaking into the house happens to be a black male. And this person is like holding a gun, I don't know, to hostages or what have you, doing some kind of horrible act. Is the police officer justified in taking down that criminal? Or would that be racist? I mean, where's the line? Where's the line is my question. What's this? At what point would it not be considered racist? What wouldn't be considered racist in the eyes of you liberals? I'm genuinely curious. If any liberals are listening right now, please answer that for me. You know how to reach me, the Jayson Veley program at gmail.com, or call and leave a message, 860-266-2852. Tell me. Because the way I see it, this has absolutely nothing to do with race. Absolutely nothing to do with race. Nothing to do with systemic racism, institutionalized racism. And yet, even though I believe the White House and Jen Psaki and Joe Biden knew that to be true, they still prepared this statement in the way that they did and made it about systemic racism. I mean, folks, these people are destroying our society. They are destroying this society. They're absolutely destroying it, tearing us apart. And I don't think they give a damn. Now let me get on to this. From the postmillennial.com. NBC deceptively edits video of Columbus police shooting of Ma'Khia Bryant. Omits key facts to paint false narrative. So the media too. Trying to twist this. Make the cop look bad. Oh, see that? Another example of police brutality. Again, this is from the postmillennial.com. NBC Nightly News deceptively edited video footage of the officer-involved shooting in Columbus, Ohio, that left Ma'Khia Bryant dead on Tuesday evening. Omitted key facts, including the 911 call of an attempted stabbing and the knife in Bryant's hand. Isn't that interesting, ladies and gentlemen? Let's see here. NBC Nightly News omitted the important 911 call on air that failed to show viewers that Bryant was trying to kill the caller. In the body cam footage, Bryant can be seen wielding a knife and running at the victim, just moments away from potentially taking her life. However, NBC Nightly News omitted the attack on air and instead only showed footage of the police officer fatally shooting Bryant. They later panned to Bryant's knife, which was laying on the ground after she was shot, attempting to paint a deceptive narrative to spark an even greater outrage. You know this is all intentional, by the way. You know it's all intentional. These media outlets, like NBC Nightly News, the liberals who work for that damn show, they know the facts. I mean, they're not stupid. They know exactly what happened. But I guarantee you, behind the scenes, they came to an agreement. They said, okay, this isn't a good look. They said, okay, how can we paint this as another example of police brutality? I know. Let's deceptively edit it. Let's not play the 911 call. Let's not really show the knife. Instead, let's just show the 16-year-old on the ground lifeless and the cop with his gun out. That'll do it. That'll do it. It's sick, folks. What the way that some of these liberals are treating our police officers is unconscionable. It is. I've often said I couldn't imagine being a police officer in this country right now. I really couldn't. God bless them, having to put up with all this garbage. I want liberals to understand something. I want to be very clear here. Because I don't know if all of them know exactly what they're doing. I don't know if all of them know the ramifications, the consequences of their actions here, of what they're saying. So let me make it very clear. You liberals are undermining the police. And when I say you liberals, I'm talking about the ones that are attacking the cops, calling to defund the cops, saying that we need to end systemic racism in the police force. You liberals, you are undermining our police officers. You're making it incredibly difficult for them to do their jobs. I mean, think about it this way. If you were a police officer, I'd imagine you'd be terrified. Terrified to try to engage in a situation involving a black person. I mean, good God, any action in that case, will be scrutinized by the media and the left. I'm not saying there shouldn't be any authority for the cops, or accountability. There absolutely should be. There should be accountability. That's why we have things like body cam. But I feel like cops are quickly approaching a point where they're finding it more and more difficult to do their job because they're being faced with more and more external pressure, political pressure. And it shouldn't be that way. It should not be that way. Cops have a very stressful job, and as long as they're following the law and following procedures, they should be able to protect innocent people the best way they see fit, without the liberals breathing down their backs, these radical activists breathing down their backs. What else are you liberals doing? You're holding the courts hostage. You absolutely are. Don't tell me you're not. Maxine Waters went out a few days ago saying that, they need to become more confrontational. Rioters need to become more confrontational if the Derek Chauvin verdict didn't go their way. You're holding the courts hostage. You want them to make decisions based on your threats rather than the facts and evidence. You liberals are emboldening rioters and looters. Many leftists are bailing these people out after they go out there and burn things and smash windows. They're bailing them out. They're making excuses for them. Many times they don't even call it riots, those on the left. And by constantly attacking the cops, demonizing the cops, saying that cops are racist, there's institutionalized racism in the police force. Yeah, you're emboldening radical groups like BLM and Antifa. You're emboldening them, empowering them to take to the streets. You proud of yourself for that, you leftists? And possibly worst of all, you're generating as much racial tension as possible. You are dividing us more than you know. More than you know. Escalating tensions between whites and minorities, escalating tensions between minorities and the cops. You're dividing us. You're tearing us apart. You are destroying the civil society. And all this, by the way, is happening under Joe Biden. The unifier, right? The guy who talked about unity just a few months ago. What a joke. I'll be right back.
This is the Jayson Veley Program.
Conservatives. How many times have you been called a racist by someone on the left? What about sexist, bigoted, homophobic, xenophobic, right-wing radical extremist? These are all buzzwords that liberals use as a means of labeling conservatives as something that they're not. And let me tell you something, I, like most of you, am getting pretty damn sick of it. That's why I started my own conservative comedy series, Living with a Liberal. Hosted on the popular video sharing app TikTok, Living with a Liberal features two fictional characters, played by yours truly, whose political differences could not be more obvious. It's a comedic take on the modern-day liberal Democrat, because if they can brand us as racists and bigots, we can brand them as triggered, oversensitive snowflakes. Check out Living with a Liberal today on TikTok. Just search Jayson Veley and you'll be taken right to my homepage. I have over 100 episodes on there, so you won't be short on content anytime soon. Enjoy. Are you a pissed off liberal that wants to give me a piece of your mind? Or maybe you're a conservative that simply has a question or comment? Either way, you should know that there's a few different ways you can reach me. Feel free to send me an email at thejaysonveleyprogram@gmail.com. Or if you prefer, you can also call the show number and leave me a voicemail. 860-266-2852. Be sure to provide your name and where you're writing or calling from. Thanks a lot. I look forward to hearing from you. I do want to get to some other topics in just a few minutes here, but I have one more related story to read to you. From Ohio State University, some students are acting outrageously. But before I get to that, did you guys hear what LeBron James tweeted on April 21st? What was that? Was that yesterday? He tweeted a picture of this police officer who drew his gun and fired, killing Ma'Khia Bryant. He posted a picture of this officer and said in all caps, "You're next." Hashtag accountability. This was, of course, he's referring to Derek Chauvin, the verdict there, and then he's saying, "Okay, you police officer involved in the killing of Ma'Khia Bryant, you're next. We're gonna get you next." He's saying. LeBron James, ladies and gentlemen, is an ass. He's an ass. I'm sorry to say, but he's a jerk. Oh, Jayson, he's talented. He's a talented basketball player. All right, great. He's not very smart, if you ask me. And by the way, after he tweeted this, he deleted it pretty quickly afterwards because he was getting a ton of backlash. No backlash, though, from any of his sponsors or the NBA. Even though he's threatening a cop is really what he's doing. But no backlash from the NBA. They couldn't care less. They're not going to bother him. His sponsors don't really care. They're not going to bother him. You're next. This jerk, LeBron James. Ohio State University. Students demand school cut ties with police following the death of knife-wielding 16-year-old. This from the Daily Wire. Following the death of a knife-wielding 16-year-old, hundreds of student activists at Ohio State University staged a protest inside of the student union demanding an end to the school's contract with the Columbus Police Department. So again, blame the cops, ignore the evidence, ignore the facts of the case, blame the cops, it's their fault. Well, Ma'Khia Bryant had a knife and could have potentially killed an innocent person. Nope, doesn't matter. Cops to blame. Cops to blame. I mean, it really is just lazy thinking, isn't it? These are college students at Ohio State University. Aren't they supposed to be at least somewhat educated? According to the Ohio State student-led newspaper, The Lantern, ironically enough, the college that I went to, the newspaper that I wrote for, was also called The Lantern. Back in those days when I wrote op-eds for my college newspaper, folks, I would piss the liberals off. You see, in college, like now, I didn't give a damn. I was just a conservative firebrand. I would write about just anything, topics that I felt were important, controversial or not. I was, those were the days. I pissed off the liberals on campus, the professors. Oh my gosh, they hated me. Anyway, according to the Ohio State student-led newspaper, The Lantern, 400 students convened at the student union to demand that the school cut ties with the Columbus police. The undergraduate student government has attempted to pass similar non-binding legislation in recent months, though the demands were reinvigorated following the shooting of a 16-year-old by a Columbus police officer. Students have come to believe that the shooting of Bryant was unjustified and rooted in systemic racism in police in America. According to Campus Reform, the university's police department has just 59 officers to deal with the school's 61,000 students. University spokesperson Ben Johnson said in a statement that the university primarily uses the Columbus police contracts for specific services such as traffic control or large athletic events. So this is a knee-jerk reaction. They're not looking at the facts, or they did and they just don't care. But it really does concern me that we're at a point in this country where you have these incidents popping up, like what happened in Columbus. People don't look at the facts. People don't consider, what happened. They don't put things into context. We're at a point now where the left, they're automatically blaming the police. Automatically jumping to systemic racism, institutionalized racism, police brutality. They're automatically jumping to that. And I think that is lazy thinking and dangerous. I really do. Now, why more of these students at Ohio State University aren't taking into account the fact that Ma'Khia Bryant had a knife is beyond me. I mean, think about it, folks. Is there no accountability on the other side? Is there no accountability for this 16-year-old girl who is trying to stab another innocent teenager? Is there any blame placed there? No, there's not. Why? I don't know. I don't know. Accountability should go both ways. But for the left, it does not. It doesn't. All right, that's all I want to say on that. Let me switch gears here. Talk a little bit about COVID-19 and the continued lockdown of America. On April 1st, on my podcast, I made the point that we're not talking about liberty when it comes to discussions on COVID-19. Liberty doesn't enter the minds of people like Dr. Fauci or these so-called medical experts. Let me play this audio clip from my podcast April 1st, just as a little refresher. Take a listen. When it comes to this debate, discussion, whatever you want to call it, on COVID, the coronavirus, that we're not discussing liberty. For whatever reason, liberty has been left out of the conversation. And I made the case, again, I can't remember, it might have been earlier this week or last week, that this is America, folks. This is the United States of America. We are a country with liberty and freedom at our core. It's who we are. It's what we're built on. And the fact that we don't even, and when I say we, I mean mostly liberal Democrats and some Republicans who might as well be Democrats. The fact that freedom has been left out of the debate is unconscionable to me. It really is. This should be at the heart of the debate. You know, we go back and forth about, you know, how long should lockdowns be? Are masks effective? And so on and so forth. You hear Fauci out there rambling on and on and on, warning about, you know, we might have another surge or, you know, another spike in cases and might need to lock down again. Joe Biden threatening the country, saying if we don't get on track here, we might not be able to celebrate 4th of July this year. These people don't even, I mean, it's like liberty doesn't even enter their mind. Liberty doesn't even enter their mind. We are Americans, folks. We make our own decisions. We know what's best for ourselves and our families and our loved ones. That's the whole point. All right, I'm live again. That was from April 1st. We're really not talking about liberty. And thank God we have people like Jim Jordan, Representative Jim Jordan, who do care about liberty and who agree with me when I say that liberty has been excluded from discussions about COVID-19. Now, I've been wanting to play this clip for a few days now. It's actually, I think, about a week old, maybe a little bit older than that, but it's a great clip nonetheless of Jim Jordan absolutely grilling Dr. Fauci, asking, when will Americans get their liberty back? And I wanted to play this because it fits nicely with what I've been saying, which is, why aren't we talking about liberty? Why is Dr. Fauci not talking about liberty? Thank God we have people like Jim Jordan. Take a listen.
I mean, are we just going to continue this forever, or when do we get to the point? What measure, what standard, what objective outcome do we have to reach before Americans get their liberty and freedoms back?
You know, you're indicating liberty and freedom. I look at it as a public health measure to prevent people from dying and going to the hospital.
You don't think Americans' liberties have been threatened the last year, Dr. Fauci? They've been assaulted. Their liberties have.
I don't look at this as a liberty thing.
What do you mean you don't look at this as a liberty thing? What the hell does that mean? You know, folks, I'm really sick of these people out there who don't give liberty and freedom as much value as it needs, as it deserves. Liberty is an incredibly precious thing. It's extremely valuable. We have it here in the United States by the grace of God. Thousands of other countries across the world do not. Thousands of other countries across the world are forced to, their people are forced to live under oppressive regimes, tyrannical government states. Here in this country, we are blessed by liberty. It's who we are. It's at our core. And for Dr. Fauci, look, I understand that he's trying to tackle this coronavirus and make sure that numbers go down and all that. I got all that. But for him to say, I don't look at this as a liberty thing. Well, you know what, Dr. Fauci? You live in this country. You live in America, in the United States. You need to be looking at this as a liberty thing. You need to be. Because that's what we're built on, for God's sakes. Don't just ignore it. Don't just say, yeah, liberty. Okay, lock down the country. No. I don't think so. All right, let's keep listening.
Congressman Jordan.
Well, that's obvious.
As a public health thing.
Tell me specifically.
Right now, we have about 60,000 infections a day, which is a very large risk for a surge. We're not talking about liberties. We're talking about a pandemic that has killed 560,000 Americans.
I get that,
That's what we're talking about.
And I don't disagree with that. And I understand how serious that is. But I also understand it's pretty serious when businesses have been shut down. People can't go to church. People can't assemble in their own homes with their friends, with their families. People can't go to a loved one's funeral. People can't get to their government, petition their representative to redress their grievances. Right. I also understand the First Amendment's pretty darn important. And it's been a year. And I want to know when Americans will get those First Amendment liberties back.
Well, you just said people cannot assemble in their own homes. They can. That's a CDC recommendation for vaccinated
Not last fall they couldn't.
I didn't hear.
Not last fall they couldn't.
I didn't hear what he said.
Suddenly you can't hear. What are you, deaf?
Government time has expired.
Open your damn ears.
Give us some objective standards versus when certain things get reached, we might be able to get back to having our liberty. When? What are the numbers?
Well,
you're going to see a gradual... right now we're at...
All right, like a classic liberal, he can't answer the question. Like a classic liberal, he can't answer the question. The question is, at what point can we get back our liberties? What number? Not just, when we have, when cases go down. Okay, well, what the hell does that mean? One of the biggest criticisms I've had of Dr. Fauci, and believe me, I've had a lot of them, is that he never gives us a light at the end of the tunnel. Never gives us, a finish line. There's no established finish line to this. And I've been warning him that people are going to become fed up. Many people, millions of us, already are. And that's why you're seeing states like Texas and Florida start saying, you know what, Fauci? F off, we're doing our own thing. We're lifting the mask mandate. We're ending these lockdowns. And I say good for those states. But Dr. Fauci never gives us a finish line. Never gives us a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't think he knows, honestly. I don't think he really cares. Keep listening.
Acceptably high level. On a daily basis, it's unacceptably high, regardless of who you are. What you're going to see as more and more people get vaccinated, and we get over 3 million people a day, you're going to see the level of infection come down, and gradually there will be more flexibility for doing the things that you're talking about.
Where does it get to? When it comes down, what number do we get our liberties back? Tell me the number. Tell me the number.
When 90% of the members of Congress get vaccinated.
But you're not a doctor, Mr. Clyburn. He is. What is the number?
Why is Clyburn answering? I don't get that. And by the way, what did he just say? When 90% of Congress gets vaccinated? Okay, thanks, doctor.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Clyburn. Thank you.
The chair now recognizes for 5 minutes.
I'd like my question answered.
Reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time.
Regular order. regular order.
No,
Just a moment.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want you to answer my question. The American people want Dr. Fauci to answer the question.
But
What does it have to be?
Expire, sir. If you need to respect the chair and shut your mouth.
Yep. And that's that. You know what's terrifying to me? This whole pandemic has shown that there are apparently millions of Americans, primarily on the left, and several thousand so-called medical experts, including Dr. Fauci, who, given the choice between freedom and safety, would choose safety. And I put safety in air quotes because it's not, that it's up for debate is what it is. But this pandemic has shown that millions of us apparently would choose safety, quote unquote, over liberty. And that tells me that far too many of us don't have a good understanding of how valuable liberty is in this country. Because I tell you what, folks, once liberty is gone, once we sacrifice our freedoms, it's very hard to get back. It's very, very hard to get back. Nearly impossible. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Conservatives. How many times have you been called a racist by someone on the left? What about sexist, bigoted, homophobic, xenophobic, right-wing radical extremist? These are all buzzwords that liberals use as a means of labeling conservatives as something that they're not. And let me tell you something, I, like most of you, am getting pretty damn sick of it. That's why I started my own conservative comedy series, Living with a Liberal. Hosted on the popular video sharing app TikTok, Living with a Liberal features two fictional characters, played by yours truly, whose political differences could not be more obvious. It's a comedic take on the modern-day liberal Democrat, because if they can brand us as racists and bigots, we can brand them as triggered, oversensitive snowflakes. Check out Living with a Liberal today on TikTok. Just search Jayson Veley and you'll be taken right to my homepage. I have over 100 episodes on there, so you won't be short on content anytime soon. Enjoy. Are you a pissed off liberal that wants to give me a piece of your mind? Or maybe you're a conservative that simply has a question or comment? Either way, you should know that there's a few different ways you can reach me. Feel free to send me an email at thejaysonveleyprogram@gmail.com. Or if you prefer, you can also call the show number and leave me a voicemail. 860-266-2852. Be sure to provide your name and where you're writing or calling from. Thanks a lot. I look forward to hearing from you.
Mike and Crystal.
Hey Mike, have you heard of the Jimmy Z Show?
Yeah, Crystal, the Jimmy Z Show is awesome.
Which topic do you like most?
I like them all. They are all lots of fun. Do you have a favorite?
I just like Jimmy Z. His voice is so hot.
Okay, but what about his politics?
What politics?
The politics he talks about on the Jimmy Z Show.
I never noticed any politics. All I hear is the velvety smooth dulcet tone of Jimmy Z's sizzling, sexy, scintillating voice.
Holy mackerel.
The Jimmy Z Show.
The Jimmy Z Show is available on Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, and iTunes.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Played the wrong intro music there for a minute, folks. Played the radio outro that we usually play before we go to, before we end the show. But that's the right one. Sorry about that little technical problem there, but what can I say? It's almost Friday. It's been a long week. I got an email from someone named Jedediah, who wrote to me, "Love your content, just started watching your podcast on YouTube and love those too. Thought this would be the best way to ask if you are ever going to include video into your podcast on YouTube." So he's asking about, am I ever going to upload videos of my podcast to YouTube. I do upload clips. I upload video clips from my podcast to YouTube. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, by the way, get on that, because I've been posting a lot there on YouTube, video clips, not just audio, but video from the podcast. Now, as to whether or not I'll ever post full video episodes of the podcast I just don't know. It may happen at some point, but for right now, I'm just sticking to, clips from my radio show. But if you want to listen to the entire podcast, start to finish, you have to listen to it either on YouTube or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, as opposed to watching it. So I hope that answers your question. But again, for those of you who haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, go for it, because you're missing out on some good stuff. All right, let me get to this before we wrap up. You guys ready to laugh? If there was an award on the Jayson Veley program for the most laughable, most, ironic article that I've read, I think this would take first place. TheBlaze.com, YouTube CEO receives Free Expression Award. That is an award for the freedom of speech for free expression. The YouTube CEO has won this. Oh, good Lord, are you kidding me? YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki received a Free Expression Award from the Freedom Forum Institute in a virtual ceremony last week, sponsored by YouTube, incidentally. Oh, so it was sponsored by YouTube. That's funny how that works. And observers mercilessly mocked the gesture, given YouTube's notorious track record of crushing free speech. Well, good, that's the way it should be. Wojcicki said in an interview, quote, "I've just seen the real benefits that freedom of speech has, as I can't even read this without keeping a straight face. I mean, it's a joke. I've just seen the real benefits that freedom of speech has, as well as representing people of all different backgrounds and all different perspectives, except conservatives. And that the freedoms we have, we really can't take for granted," she said. "We really have to make sure that we're protecting them in every way possible." This is the CEO of YouTube. YouTube, the platform that constantly censors conservative content. PragerU's been censored. I just had a video taken down earlier this week. You know what it was for? The video was taken down because I talked about... Oh God, I don't want to say it because I don't want this video to be taken off of YouTube. But I talked about, let's just say, election integrity. Okay? And you all know what I mean by that. I talked about that a few episodes back, and that entire episode was taken off of YouTube. That entire episode was taken off of YouTube because I talked about questionable things that happened in the past election. And the CEO is winning a Free Expression Award? Really? The Blaze goes on. It has a few bullet points. These are kind of interesting. In 2019, Wojcicki admitted that YouTube took down hundreds of ads for then-President Donald Trump, yet claimed the purge was done without political bias. Yeah, that's a joke. Last year, YouTube removed a viral video featuring frontline doctors calling for an end to the quarantine and comparing COVID-19 to the flu. Earlier this month, YouTube removed a video of a public health roundtable hosted by Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, featuring a panel of scientists and researchers who challenged the effectiveness of COVID-19 lockdowns and masks. And again, other conservatives have been attacked too. Louder with Crowder has been attacked. Many of his videos have been taken down. I've had videos taken down. PragerU's had videos taken down. I'm sure Ben Shapiro has had videos censored. I mean, the idea that YouTube stands for free speech and the freedom of expression, and the idea that the CEO would be awarded with a free expression award is just such a joke. Such a joke. Folks, I am very passionate in my belief that the freedom of speech is absolute. The freedom of speech is absolute. And you know what? A lot of people make the argument and say, well, you know what? If you're spreading misinformation on social media, it should be banned. It should be banned. I believe that's one of the guidelines on YouTube too. You know, the spread of misinformation. God forbid you talk the wrong way about COVID-19 or the 2020 election. They'll hit you and say, oh, you're spreading misinformation. Folks, just because it's misinformation, quote unquote, does that mean it's not protected by the First Amendment? Since when is misinformation not protected by the First Amendment? Not protected by the freedom of speech. In other words, folks, here, let me make it very simple. If I wanted to go on YouTube, publish a video on YouTube and say, or anywhere for that matter, and say, I believe that aliens from the planet Neptune, use some kind of advanced technology to brainwash Americans into voting for Joe Biden in the 2020 election. That should be protected by the freedom of speech, by the First Amendment. There should be no issues in me saying that. Now, everyone would think I'm crazy, and rightfully so, but I should have the ability to say that. Would it be misinformation? Absolutely. But it still should be protected. Many on the left don't agree with that. The YouTube CEO doesn't agree with that. But that's okay. She still gets a free expression award. Complete joke. All right, folks. That's a wrap for the week. I'll be back on Tuesday. Until then, have a great weekend. God bless. And God save this great nation.